Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Betafpv 65X HD. This is a pre-production model, so the canopy will be much different. As you can tell, I've broken mine all apart, but we'll have more on that later. The all-in-one flight controller ESC is a 5-amp ESC with an F4 processor and an OSD. This is our bind button. That little guy down in there, that's our boot button. Running 0802 14,000 kV motors on Gemfan tri-blade 31mm props. For your FPV and HD recording, we have the Caddx Turtle, but it is not the baby turtle. This is a specialized board. Runs in a 2S configuration, BT2.0 connectors. The batteries are mounted in this piggyback configuration. It weighs 31.5 grams. With the Beta FPV batteries, it weighs just about 47 grams. With the Cinewhoop 333 milliamp batteries, it weighs almost 48 grams. And it also comes in this very stylish case and one charging adapter cable. Before we get started, you can see we've got that banding or that kind of that rolling screen going on. That is due to that LED light in the hallway. It's actually kind of a cool effect if you look over to the left in that LED light. And Nate Payne, Mr. Shutterbug, shout out to him. He reached out to me and he was like, hey, I think you can connect that up to a controller and then change the hertz on it. My concern with doing that, and I was clear in trying to communicate that with him, was we have different LED lights all through our house. So that's something to be considered when you're flying this inside, you're wanting to get your HD footage, is that you may find you need to make a change, and you may find that you have an environment that's maybe a little bit inhospitable to avoiding that banding, that sort of rolling. We have LED lights in the basement, we have LED lights in that front dining room, we have that hallway LED light. I couldn't say where else we have LED lights. They're kind of just sprinkled throughout the house wherever I've thought to either replace the fixture or replace the bulbs if I can. And in my typical desire and style to fly this is to fly it around in kind of a racing sort of format, which isn't exactly easy. You know, when you start adding weight, so you're starting to push 50 grams if you're running the Cinewhoop batteries and you've only got 31mm props, it isn't easy. So I don't want to convince anyone that this is something that's going to be real viable to fly around like this in your house. Of course, if you've got the skill set and you've got the desire, you can learn and you can get it done. But if you're relatively new, or maybe you're a little bit of a basher, probably not a great candidate, but more so for cruising and getting good footage in tight components. So this isn't exactly a clean flight. I had a couple other better flights, but the 10-year-old asked me if I could include this flight because she knew that I came over into the front room where her and her sister were watching TV, and we'll see that a little bit later. And when we reviewed that video a little bit later on, I think a day or two later, she asked me to include it. So we're going to go with that flight. It turned out fairly well. I only had one crash in it. I did bonk off the floor, I think, as I went down the stairs, which wasn't so elegant. But I think overall, you still get a good idea of how it performs, at least for someone like myself in my space. Our flight time in this sort of style, again, at my altitude and my environment, is going to be about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I can get 2 minutes and 45 seconds when I run the Cinewhoop batteries, and there is a big performance difference between the Beta FPV batteries and the Cinewhoop batteries. There is also a price difference between the batteries as well, but I'll put links down below to the Cinewhoop shop, and if you're interested in getting some of those batteries, they are a little bit hard to come by because they are so popular. Of course, you need Beta BT2.0 connectors, or you need to swap your current batteries over to BT2.0 connectors in order to be able to connect the batteries to this quad, or you need to change out the BT2 connector on the quad to a PH2.0 connector. We get a chance to see that crash, flip over, went to see the girls, which I mentioned previously, and we saw their brother downstairs playing video games at the table. We had him in quarantine because he was on a cruise when the pandemic outbreak happened, so we kept him separate, and we take every precaution in our household because we do have our middle daughter, or middle child. She is immunosuppressed, so we take these things very, very seriously. This is just a short video. Some of you have seen this already. This was a teaser I posted on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Something I'm terrible at is keeping up with all the different social medias. I post to Twitter and Instagram about once a blue moon, Facebook sometimes, but this was something I had posted previously. It's actually from the same night, I believe, as the footage that I showed you. Pretty much as everybody's in the same place, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to see that in case you're not a Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter user. Okay, so this is our outside flight, and I'd already talked to one person online and said it was unlikely I was going to do that. So but look at that pine tree. Look how still that pine tree is. It's about 17 or 18 feet out. So I got really lucky, and this was just dumb luck. We were actually looking at a delivery, and then I noticed how calm it was outside. It's actually overcast, which I believe was also requested, and so I got an opportunity to go out and fly, and it's real still. So don't think if you're flying in my normal conditions where it's actually relatively windy here in the Midwest and kind of the plains that this is going to fly very well outside. But I got this opportunity. I wanted to be as thorough as I can without skewing the results of the product or how things perform in certain scenarios. So be careful if you live in a windy place and your plan is to fly this outside, because it only weighs 50 grams at most unless you put big lunking batteries on there. And even at that, if you start adding too much weight and battery weight, you could find your flight time actually goes down because you've only got 31 millimeter props and you've only got those 0802 14,000 kV motors. But I was fairly impressed. Of course, we don't have bright sun. Bright sun tends to bring out the jello, but I'm seeing pretty stable footage in this outside flight. Now, it isn't a zero wind day. It's very, very low, and the breeze that does come up is steady. It's not sudden. It kind of, I don't know, like someone gently blows and it increases a little bit and then it gently backs off, which is it's pretty rare in my case. Of course, I'm in town, so we do have the protection of the houses. The particular day that I was flying this outside, the weather data indicated that the official measurement for wind was 6 miles an hour. Of course, in town, that's always different because I believe the official weather data has got certain specifications about being, so far out and away from everything and so far off the ground and all these different things. So that gives you a little bit of idea of the environment. Quite honestly, when it comes down to that wind, I could really only barely feel it as it would kind of ease up. This is probably one of the least wind days that I've had in some time. Wasn't able to lock in that orbit. That's pilot error. Nothing wrong with the quad there. I should probably talk about the quad a little bit more than I have. But on 2S, I think inside, in a tight inside space for the majority of pilots out there, it might be a little bit much. But 2S does help it perform outside. And we do for a few short punches. And I believe I go down to the other end of the yard to do a longer punch to give you some idea about the throttle acceleration from low throttle to 100% throttle. So you do get an opportunity to see that. And I am thankful that the weather did cooperate and I got this lucky opportunity to go out and fly two sets of batteries. So I got 2 flights in this particular session. It allows me to be a little bit more thorough in the review of the quad, because otherwise if the weather would have just been bad the whole time and then I don't get to do those things and you get to see less and I'm less thorough and feel good about what I've done for result. First punch out that you just saw there, I drifted too far, so I'm going to go back and try it again. Little clip of those bushes. It's a little better. And although it wasn't a high punch out, no washout. But that could vary depending upon the batteries that you're running. I do believe these are the Cinewhoop batteries, the 333 milliamp batteries. So your results may vary. And then we come in and we end the flight there as well. So I'm going to roll some crash footage up over here so that you can see all the different crashes. I know a lot of you enjoy that. The crash footage is only mildly important because the canopy is going to be different. This is a pre-production canopy and you can see I've broken it all apart. I've got this glue smeared all over it that is welder adhesive to kind of hold mine together as long as I could, because when I did fly inside I did crash quite a bit as you're watching that. I fully expect the production version to be more like this, but I do think it will probably be thicker. We have the same mount points in this canopy that we have in this canopy, and we have a camera holder that's very, very similar to what's inside this canopy as well, so I think it will be like this but thicker. Originally when the Meteor 65 came out, I was told the same thing about the canopy, that the one I had was pre-production and that the one they had was going to be colored. Although this is painted, I fully expect the production one to be color injected so that it won't chip away the color, so it'll be much more attractive to look at if that's the sort of thing that is important to you. Something that is interesting that's different between these two canopies is if you look right there, you see we have a mount point at the front of that canopy, which this one does not have. But we also don't have a mount point for that screw hole at the front. So I'm hopeful that they have a new frame molding they're also going to be doing, and that frame point will have a mount point, so your footage has an opportunity to be even more stable than what I've shown you. I'm going to take the canopy off so we can take a look at the underneath side. Okay, so we've got everything disassembled. Well, not completely disassembled, but the important bits that we want to take a look at. You can see we've got soft mounting all the way through. You can see the standoffs only come up to the flush top of the soft mounting. You can see the wiring here. It's all black. I don't agree with that. I think we need to follow convention when it comes to wiring. So when you have a crash, if you by chance don't take a picture, and I always suggest people taking a picture when you're doing a repair so your wiring can go back to where it needs to be. When you use these all black wires, it doesn't give anybody an opportunity to know what is what. What is voltage, what is ground, what is video, what is some other signal, what have you. So while it looks clean, it doesn't follow the conventions, and I think we need to follow convention when it comes to wiring because of repair purposes. So you could take a look at this board, and let me pull out my other Baby Turtle board and I'll show you the differences here. So one of the big differences is actually the camera. See this new camera versus the original Baby Turtle? So that saves weight off of there as well. There's a pretty dramatic difference there. The board itself looks somewhat similar. You can see we've got some resistors and whatnot that are in slightly different locations or maybe different sizes. And you can also see the screws mounting the back of the board to the camera housing. But this I thought was fairly interesting on how it's smaller. Let me take this lens cap off here. The lens seems to be the same size, but yet we have dramatically different size housings on the camera. So that that definitely does save weight. I didn't see any difference in the image quality. You can go watch my Baby Turtle review to see if there was any differences. Of course, lighting is always going to impact those things. Let's take a quick look at the underside because it's easy to see here between the two boards. I think I've got things lined up wrong. Let me get things lined up right. Make sure I'm staying out of our crash corner. So you can see that this board accepts these grommets like this, where this one isn't really set up to do that, don't think. Yeah, these are smaller holes, so we would have to, I don't think you could find grommets that go through there, but maybe, that's a possibility. I just think it's unlikely. You can see there's some differences in the boards. We've got a microphone on both of them. The microphone by chance is virtually not going to be of interest to you unless you want to hear you talking to the quad without flying it, because once you turn on the props and the motors start to run, the noise sounds like you're having a root canal or you're having your teeth drilled, something of that nature. So it's not pleasing to the ear to hear, but it is usable when you want to talk to it. This gives you an idea of what the board looks like from this side. Let's rotate it over the top here. I'm trying not to be too rough with anything. I don't want to have to do any repairs myself. You can see the buttons are in the same location. And one thing that is missing and that is different is if you look at the wiring here, I'm hopeful. I'm trying to get these things lined up here so that you can see them somewhat. I know that I don't know if that crash reel is still running or not, but I'm trying to give you a good picture of what things look like. So we don't have any leads connected for camera control, so that you could connect via a control board to change settings. And I don't see where these are labeled very clearly, at least looking through the viewfinder of the camera. I don't see where they're labeled. They could be on there. I do see some writing over in this area and a little bit back here, but I just wanted to draw your attention to the differences of the boards. These are not the same boards, so if you get one of these and the camera dies, you should probably pursue getting this board that it came with rather than a generic off-the-shelf Caddx Baby Turtle. We also have the VTX up here. It's mounted right in these two spots, and then we have some tape with some foam. I think it's got some foam. Nope, just tape to protect the VTX from bonking into the back of the camera, keep that from happening. You can see right here I broke off my mount for my camera, and that's where I kind of ended my review. I don't know where this piece went. It's gone. It's in the wind. Repairing that is probably a little bit further than my stretch without having to get a different canopy. I thought about using this one, but if it has unstable footage, then it's really not of use, because I can't, neither way do I know whether this canopy is going to be used or this canopy. Well, I guess I should be fairly certain this canopy is going to be used because they told me it's not going to be used. But the thickness of this canopy, I sure hope that it's thicker. without adding a whole lot of weight to make sure the camera's held real nice and steady so you don't get much jello in your footage. Also, one other thing I'll draw your attention to, you see my antenna, how I pulled it out over here. I was, and you probably heard it in the flight footage, I was getting a lot of low RSSI callouts on my radio, and this antenna was actually laid across this board and kind of coiled up. So the antenna was between two boards. When I moved it out here, I noticed that the RSSI callouts went down dramatically. So that's something that if you have troubles or it bothers you, it's something to consider doing yourself. I don't know if production models will have something different. Maybe they'll have a hole in the canopy to where the antenna will come out above the camera, out through the canopy. That would be good if they do, but you know, this is what I did in my scenario to help improve that. I'm going to put it back together so we can wrap up. And in the attempt to wrap up, I think there's one thing that can be said true about this that we can all agree on. This is the lightest weight HD Whoop in the ready to fly category. And if that's what you're looking for, then the choice is made. But as I tried to make clear in the flight footage, it's not going to be easy to fly fast on an indoor space like mine. So on a house with doorways, with furniture, lamps, all the different things. But if you have a different flying space, you gauge that for yourself. I was once asked about using a numerical value to rank the different quads, and I really don't like that. That seems very gimmicky. It also feels like a sales tactic to make you think something's better. It's also not relevant, because if I were to give something a particular rating and then 6 months down the road give something else the same rating, which is actually better, because in this hobby 6 months down the road huge technology changes have happened, so that old rating isn't valued anymore. So someone stumbles on that one and doesn't see the new one. You get what I'm saying. It's just not a good way, I think. So I like mainly for you to decide, and as you're watching this, you should find that there is a link in the video description to the Betafpv website where you should be able to buy this, at least now as you're watching it, or in the next 24 hours. I believe it's supposed to launch on the 30th. I plan on posting this about that time because I am done flying it. I am kind of settled on where I sit with it. For me, HD footage is nice, but I only desire it when I'm cruising. When I'm flying fast, I don't desire it. I desire performance. So you need to weigh what you want more when it comes to your quad. Do you like to cruise and get that high definition footage? Then choice made. If you like to go fast, then you need to look at a lighter weight Whoop type product. If you want to fly outside, you probably need to look at a product that doesn't have prop guards on it. And of course, Betafpv offers some very good products that don't have prop guards as well. It's something that they've been doing recently in the last 6 to 8 months, is having larger quads without prop guards. So take a look at those products as well if you're planning to fly mainly outside. I know that's a non-answer, but I think you need to take a look at this and decide for yourself, rather than have someone like me try to convince you of whether or not you should have something. Hopefully I've given you and shown you enough information to where you can make that choice for yourself. But if you do have any additional comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that comment section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.